Okay, so you're trying to, really get something, cut through all the noise and understand it properly, but without feeling totally overwhelmed by information.
Right, that's the goal. And today, we're doing just that.
We're diving into something that might sound a bit surprising at first, maybe even make you raise an eyebrow. Laughing yoga.
Yeah, it's definitely a practice built on what seems like a counterintuitive idea, like you start laughing on purpose,
Yeah,
without anything actually being funny.
exactly. It sounds kind of weird, doesn't it?
It does, understandably so.
And that really brings us to the big question for this deep dive, doesn't it? Can forcing yourself to laugh like that actually do anything good? Can you sort of engineer joy?
That's exactly how some of the material we looked at frames it. Can joy be engineered?
Hmm. So we've dug into sources covering what laughing yoga actually is, the practice itself, and also the science that might explain why it might work.
So let's start there. What are we actually talking about? What does the laughing yoga session look like?
Okay, picture this. You've got a bunch of people. Maybe they're in a park, could be a studio or a community hall.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the weird bit. There's no stand-up comic, no funny movie playing, nothing like that. But people are laughing, like really laughing, big belly laughs.
And crucially, they're choosing to do it. It's intentional.
It's totally intentional.
Yeah, it's basically applying that fake it till you make it idea directly to laughter. It actually has origins back in the 1990s. A doctor in India, Dr. Madan Kataria, came up with it.
Okay, so how does it work? What are the components?
Well, the core elements are pretty straightforward.
Hmm.
You got the intentional laughter itself, often started with just sounds or simple exercises.
Right.
And that's combined with deep breathing techniques, similar to what you'd find in traditional yoga, pranayama breathing.
Ah, okay, the yogic breathing.
Exactly. And usually some gentle movements or stretching involved too.
Yeah, so the really interesting part, the central idea, is that our brains or bodies, they might not actually care if the laughter is real, like from a joke, or if it's something we just, started doing on purpose.
That's the hypothesis, essentially. That the physiological response, the benefits you get,
Yeah.
might be pretty similar either way.
Okay, so let's talk about those benefits. What does the science we looked at say happens when you laugh, whether it's real or, faked?
Well, the information suggests that laughter triggers some pretty positive changes physiologically. For instance, there's the release of endorphins.
Ah, the feel-good chemicals.
Precisely. And at the same time, it seems to help lower levels of cortisol.
The stress hormone, right.
That's the one. Plus, you're generally taking in more oxygen because of the deeper breathing and the physical act of laughing itself.
Okay, so endorphins up, cortisol down, more oxygen. What does that translate to, potentially?
Well, the hope is that this leads to a noticeable lift in mood, less overall stress. And some research even hints at a possible boost for the immune system.
Interesting. And there's also this other idea, the facial feedback thing.
Yes, the facial feedback hypothesis. It's this theory that simply making the facial expression associated with an emotion, like smiling, or in this case, laughing, can actually send signals back to the brain.
Signals that then kind of reinforce that feeling.
Exactly. It suggests the physical act can influence the emotional experience.
That was
Like forcing a smile might actually make you feel a tiny bit happier. It's a feedback loop.
So connecting that back to laughing yoga, it means the whole fake it till you feel it thing might actually have some neurological grounding.
It certainly points in that direction.
Yeah.
That intentionally doing the physical act of laughing could neurologically nudge you towards genuinely feeling happier or lighter.
Which brings us to something I bet a lot of listeners are thinking. The awkwardness factor.
Oh, absolutely. The idea of just starting to laugh, maybe with people you don't even know, it feels unnatural.
Yeah.
Maybe really uncomfortable.
Totally. I mean, just thinking about it, standing there and forcing out a ha 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 feels exposed. A bit silly.
It definitely can feel that way. But the sources we looked at actually suggest that getting past that initial awkwardness is, part of the whole point.
How so?
It helps you bypass your own self-consciousness, your inhibitions.
Yeah.
It's about letting go of that judgment.
Okay, so how do they ease people into it? They don't just say, okay, laugh. Right?
Usually not, no. Often sessions start with more playful things, like rhythmic clapping, maybe chanting simple sounds together like ho ho ha ha.
Ah, sort of icebreaker.
Exactly. Designed to build a bit of group connection, make it feel less weird, more playful and shared.
And then they move into the laughing exercises.
Right. And yeah, starting those can definitely feel forced or artificial for people. That's pretty normal.
I can imagine.
But what's often reported is quite interesting. That initial fake laughter. it frequently starts to morph into real, genuine laughter. Well, partly because laughter can be contagious,
Mhm.
especially in a group. And as people relax and those social barriers drop, the absurdity of it all, or just the shared experience, can trigger actual amusement.
Huh. So the fake becomes real.
Often, yes. Or at least the feeling behind it becomes more genuine. And people apparently often walk away from sessions feeling, well, surprisingly good.
Like how? What do they report?
Things like feeling more energized, lighter, sometimes even a bit euphoric. A real sense of release.
Wow. Okay, so who is this for? Who's actually doing laughing yoga? Is it a niche thing?
It seems to have broader appeal than you might think, actually.
Yeah.
The materials show it popping up in lots of different places.
Like where?
Wellness groups, definitely, but also senior centers,
Uh-huh.
corporate workshops for team building or stress management, even sometimes in hospitals or care settings.
So quite diverse.
Yeah. And it's also being looked at cautiously
Yeah.
as maybe a helpful add-on for people dealing with things like anxiety or depression.
Right, not a replacement for therapy, but maybe something complementary.
Yeah. Exactly. A potential tool to add to the mix.
And one thing that really struck me from the descriptions is how accessible it seems.
That's a huge point. Unlike a lot of, say, traditional yoga styles, you don't need to be flexible. You don't need to be athletic.
No tricky poses involved.
Nope. It's really just about the willingness to participate, to make the sounds, to breathe. It's very inclusive physically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And we probably shouldn't forget just how social laughter is, fundamentally. We're wired to connect with others through shared positive emotions. Laughing together, even if it starts intentionally, taps into that.
Okay, so let's pull this all together. Circling back to our main question. Can joy be engineered? What's the takeaway from this deep dive?
Well, based on the practice itself and the science behind it, it really does seem like, yeah, intentionally choosing to laugh can influence our emotional state. The body seems to respond positively regardless of why you started laughing.
So the faking it can actually lead to making it, in a sense.
It seems plausible, yes. Maybe think of it uh, like a workout for happiness, as one source put it.
Oh, workout for happiness. I like that.
Yeah, you're exercising that laughter muscle, even if it feels a bit weird or forced at the beginning. Maybe pushing through that initial resistance is kind of the point.
That's a really good way to think about it. So for you listening, maybe in a world that often feels pretty heavy or demanding, consciously deciding to laugh, even if you have to kickstart it yourself, could actually be a surprisingly powerful and honestly a pretty lighthearted way to practice some self-care.
Which leaves you with something to think about, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Given all this, would you be curious enough to try it? Maybe, I don't know, look up a video online, or even just try some silly fake laughing with a friend.
You really might be surprised at what happens,
You
right?
just might.